Welcome, everyone. Uh, welcome, Wyoming and friends from Mountain Pacific, which means around the globe. We have Alaska, Hawaii sometimes. And I'm Carmen Bowman. It's been a privilege to get to work with Wyoming going on 3 years, although the third year of our project is in full swing. And that's a little bit sad, but also exciting because you now have an established culture change coalition. And thanks to Eric Boley, who's on the line, you already have a place to sit under the Wyoming Hospital Association, free of charge. And the steering committee hopes to just keep going and keep doing things, probably a lot like this. We're going to tap steering members for future education sessions, and anyone who's interested, let me know, like, what's your topic? What are you dying to share? And then maybe, delve into talking with others about it. And perhaps you could all keep going, at least free education once a month like this. So today, our topic is the third part of the Artifacts 2.0. And there are 5 sections, and today is 2 of the 5, the last 2. And this is all thanks to a CMP grant in Wyoming. Oh, and actually, they've redefined really what it is a CMP reinvestment project, which is kind of cool. So monies that are, received from nursing homes are reinvested. And we call this grant Implementing Culture Change Throughout Wyoming, Affecting Resident-Directed Living and Team Member Retention. How do you like that? Notice we didn't say anything about care. We invite you all to kind of bring it up. Resident-directed living is our focus. Care is a part of that, but not the only focus, right? And in all my work for 3 decades with changing institutional culture, we tend to see that team members love it, and therefore they stay longer, and you attract people to work in your non-institutional environment. So here we go. I have a lot to cover. Please forgive me. If you're just hearing about the Artifacts tool now, we call it a self-assessment tool. We also call it an educational tool. If you just print it out and read it, you will learn. Share it widely with your team. Also, as you complete the tool, you can use it as a benchmarking. You can complete it now and then complete it again, a year from now. We do recommend annually. And then we hope it's also an inspirational tool. And by that, we mean that when you read all these wonderful practices, you are likely to want to implement some of them. And on the tool, there are 134 items captured. All right, so then the 5 sections are resident-directed life, being well known, home environment, and accommodation of needs and preferences. We covered those already today. We turn to family and community and leadership and team member engagement. So here we go with family and community. So one of the practices there is the idea that you invite people of all ages, particularly children now, to engage with residents. And I feel your pain, everyone. We all did this before COVID. This broke everyone's heart to stop it. And it's very exciting to see it again. So if you aren't reaching out to some group, highly recommend it. My little girl's on the floor in that photo. She just turned 18. She's probably about 7 there. We would just collect friends and neighbors and people from church. We used to homeschool, didn't matter who, typically moms and kids, but sometimes dads and sometimes people of all ages. And we just went, and you know what we did? We took our time, learning from like the Eden alternative, not to be in such a rush, to just be together, not perform, not just do a recital, but be together. And we would take our time and we'd all try to meet each other and shake hands. By the way, I recommend a lot of handshaking. It's a neat way to touch people, and particularly people with dementia who may not remember you each time. And then we ask for wisdom. You could do that. We ask the elders every time for a different take on their wisdom. How might you encourage us to be good friends? What advice would you give us on you guys could all do this on raising a family? You could create a wisdom book for kids and people of all ages. These photos are two of my very favorites. So my friend Kimberly passed off her 2-week-old baby to Elaine many years ago. That's Eden. And then the other photo is Eden at age 3. They live in Colorado. I live in Indiana, but I just happened to be there and I stayed at their home. Eden is now 12. But the second photo there, Eden is with Helen. Eden was 3, and guess how old Helen was in this photo? It's pretty darn special. Helen was 103. Oh, isn't that cool? And I just have a theory, guys. Actually, no, yeah, kind of an encouragement. I love to bring up babies when I can. The baby dolls are, I'm going to be kind of blunt, they're fake. And if you really want to think about that, they also present problems sometimes to people with dementia. And so I'm just trying to be a voice for reminding all of us to get back to real. And I know we can't have babies there 24/7, but if you all talk about babies more, don't leave it up to the activity director, because any one of us at any given point in time, we don't know that many babies. They grow up fast. So if I got to work with any of you, I'd be saying, hey, what babies do you know, Shani? Hey, Larissa, what babies do you know? And always be reminding each other to talk to the neighbor or cousin or sister or whoever who has a baby and talk about their willingness to maybe come have lunch with you and meet some elders and share that baby, as they're comfortable. So we need more babies is my thought. And another great quote from someone in our movement, Carter Catlett Williams, a leader in our movement. She says, we belong together, not in ghettos of old age or single age culture. Isn't that good? What is lacking is real life. Real life is not found in programs. Real life is in the give and take of everyday life. Beware of confusing programs with real life. Isn't that good? And then, I'm so sorry, we just have to roll through, but the next artifact is actually making it possible in your home to invite outdoor groups. So if a person moves in and they belong to some sort of group, inviting the group to now meet in your nursing home so that this particular person could attend their group. I saw that in a home in Minnesota where I got my start, and I was so impressed, and we got it even into the artifacts tool. Isn't that great? Some of you do that, and if you don't yet, you could. Then we have that your home works with residents to accommodate their preferences to be more actively involved in their community outside the home. So them and their clubs or volunteering, let's say at a school or animal shelter or homeless shelter. And there's a company called Rockport Services. They're predominantly in California, and they actually made this happen. They have 80 nursing homes, and in each home, at least before COVID, they were preparing food at the nursing home and taking it to the homeless shelter. And I have a video clip to show you. I've turned my volume all the way up, so hopefully you can all hear this. It's also on YouTube. So lean in, and I hope your volume is up. Here we go.
There's a lot of people here working to make food. We've been eating it. They've been buttering bread, and someone's been making cookies to serve to the people at the shelter tonight, the homeless shelter. And it's so exciting. Really to be able to do that, because I was never get homeless, but there were times I went without food. But the fact that I could do something to help somebody else makes you feel so good about yourself. I have arthritis. One lady had to put hands, we're all working together. The first time in a very long time I've finished. Here I am, I'm 54 and I'm filming the first time in a long time that I'm working that same. Makes me feel productive up here to be able to do what we used to do in our kitchen and it's go with somebody. That's exciting. It gives me something to think about. That's so important. It gives us, we feel like humans that we're still productive. This is what it's all about. It really is. They're viable, they're active, they want to contribute. It's just a phenomenal thing. They're truly amazing.
Was really eye-opening for everyone. I don't think they were really expecting the emotional part of it. So they clapped for the residents for cooking. It was really nice. I believe that it's a new future project. That's going to be more popular with other skilled nursing facilities and facilities in general.
We can do anything that we try. Because all things are possible. As long as she's trying. I'm looking forward to next month. Like what we're going to cook and what we're going to do. Oh yeah.
He's sort of famous right there. And before I forget, that became old hat for all those homes that several of them started doing canine foster adopt. There's another video if you want to go find it. Maybe I'll show it in something coming up, but the residents are totally in charge of caring for the foster dog. And they also take the calls where people might want to adopt them and they interview them and they decide who gets to adopt. Isn't that wonderful? So next artifact, residents have opportunities to engage now in other events like fairs, parades, bowling, concerts, ball games. I know, again, many of you already do it, but if you're not, maybe now's the time. For over 10 years, I heard a story out of North Dakota that the residents told the activity director that really they were just going to those groups to make her happy, to not hurt her feelings. Talk about institutional, now it's gone to another level of feeling obligated or something. And so the WISE activity director asked what would they like to do, and they basically said, we just want to make our food. Notice what that woman just said. It felt like I'm back in my kitchen, and they want to go to ball games. Isn't that great? And one of the Wyoming videos that you all could see also on YouTube shows Morningstar, and you can go find out how Morningstar has had a relationship with the high school for decades. And the elders have their own section at the basketball games, and the school invites them to roll into the garage so the elders don't have to go out in the weather. So great. You got to go see it. And it really is a lovely picture of this culture change practice. Then we have that the nursing home would have some sort of cafe available where residents and families can actually order something to eat or drink. I actually dined in this cafe in a New York nursing home, and they would share with us it meant so much to the people who lived there to be able to treat others. And then I worked with another home in Colorado that did a much simpler version. This was a very unused space. It was just the entryway to the nursing home. They turned it into Bear Creek Bistro. They found the tall, I should say, I guess they're not that tall, but they found these cute chairs and tables and countertop from a coffee shop going out of business or something on Craigslist. And great stories like the young administrator who made craft beers in his home would bring them and they'd have beer and pretzels. They noticed that families and friends and visitors stayed longer. They had a place to sit and talk. And Another neat thing that happened was people who walked in didn't think that was a nursing home. Sure doesn't look like it, does it? So they would walk back out thinking they got the wrong place. We call that the shock factor. If I was working with any of your homes, I would encourage you to like purposely have a shock factor. Have a coffee shop, have a restaurant, have a gift shop. I've seen places have a better gift shop than they can get downtown. If you have things that draw the community into your home, you know, rather than begging them to come, it makes it so beautiful, fills your home with life and real life. Also, the idea of a store or shop. Many homes have had this, like this is a life care building that has the ice cream shop, and they added a gift shop. Here is another home I worked with. Sorry, it's a bad picture, but see the armed war right there? That is their gift shop. And so it's locked, and then residents run it. No staff are not that involved. Residents decide on the times and who will volunteer. They're in charge of the money and what they buy. Isn't that great? Here's another home. It was called Sandalwood, and they opened up Sandal Mart. They raised money. They had a grand opening. Oh, isn't that fun? And we want a place where residents in particular can buy things they might need, toiletries, gifts, food, but others as well. There was kind of a dead office space in another home that they turned into a grandma's treasures gift shop. So then the next artifact is that a kitchen or rehab apartment or activity kitchen would be made available to residents and families in order to do baking and cooking. And the home is intentional about letting people know about it. So, you know, some of you are blessed with an activity kitchen, but not all. Some of you are blessed with a real kitchen, like a greenhouse or a household model, but not all. And then if you represent a home that has neither, you may have a rehab apartment. And I realized, again, decades ago, that is probably a very unique potential place that residents and families could use. And the therapists really don't use it all that much. So all you have to do, and this is what homes do, is have a sign-up sheet. And even the therapist would sign up for blocks of time. And then letting people know. Amy Holt is on the line, and they have done this. And it's taken a little time, but they're slowly noticing that, oh yeah, so-and-so's daughter was here and baked cookies. And truly the idea is to involve residents as much as possible. We love this notion that if grandma so-and-so is famous for her cinnamon rolls, that she would be able to continue to be famous for them. Here's a true story. You see Amanda was famous for her cinnamon rolls, and the team supported her living in a household model nursing home. And this is kind of ironic, but they ended up being called Carmen Bowls. I'm not related, don't know her, but I don't know the whole story, but I wonder if like caramel rolls somehow maybe got misheard or something. I don't know, but isn't that funny? All right, then the next practice is a family council. We've done whole webinars on family councils. If you don't have one, it's a beautiful thing. And we have lots of tips on things that would maybe draw families to really want to come. I just don't have the time. Another practice is actively soliciting views from family members and intentionally treating them as care partners instead of visitors who just pay a visit. Isn't that nice? That comes from the Eden Alternative. They refer to employee care partners, elder care partners, and family care partners. And the whole point is that we're all partners in the care of this person. No one's more important than the other. So what a wonderful thing. Not all families always feel that way. Another practice is to recruit family members as well as other community members to be volunteers. And we probably covered it elsewhere, but we have a similar artifact where we talk about recruiting residents as volunteers. So that is a total of only 10 items in family and community. And if you have any questions or anything, why don't I just pause and see, does anyone have any questions or comments about any of those 10 so far? Patty is sharing that ombudsman in your state have information on family councils and can help the process if need be. Thank you, Patty. Does anyone have any family council stories or progress. Let's see, I guess I may have time. I always recommend, number one, have great food. We all know that, right? Number two, maybe start thinking of it as a support group and say that, try that. It's hard to love someone who also lives in a nursing home. That whole process is hard. Of course, education on topics that would be really helpful to people. And I've always said an element of power. If you give power to that group, which means you would say some decision will be made at the family council. I believe those, at least those four things, probably lots of other things would perhaps draw people to come. Probably also offering it online these days would be very helpful as well. And we're good at knowing how to do that, right? So now the next section is leadership and team member engagement. And we begin with team meetings held daily for team members from the varying disciplines. And so the idea of basically of a huddle, daily huddles are so worth your time. If you're not doing it, the fact that it's daily means it's better communication and things don't slip through the cracks. Huddle kind of implies it's pretty quick. You can do it standing up. You can do huddles in all sorts of ways with all sorts of teams, but ideally, you know, like a neighborhood team. We use neighborhood instead of unit. And think about, yes, housekeeping, dining, social work activities, the different nursing, whoever else who really interacts with the people who live on this neighborhood. Sometimes leadership goes to the huddle. So maybe the DON comes to this huddle today, administrator to that huddle, and there's so much value in having administration interact with team members because now you have direct communication. Sometimes administration needs to offer information and sometimes direct care team members need to offer information to one another, right? And when people feel well communicated with, that also translates into retention. All right, then we have an interesting one that we call a troubleshooter. So each resident would have a troubleshooter, an assigned staff member, team member, who maybe does this for one or two people. You've all heard of the guardian angel idea. This goes far beyond that, however, it's very interesting. A troubleshooter is anyone from any team. I use team instead of department. And in this role, they are supposed to follow up and make sure things happen. Isn't that interesting? You might think of it like a case coordinator, care coordinator. So even if you work in maintenance and you're a troubleshooter for Mrs. Smith, you have every right now to ask if, you know, she did get to the dentist, that kind of thing. So it really crosses, you know, the silos that we tend to live in, and it builds in an extra layer of quality improvement. Isn't that wonderful? A troubleshooter. And you'd have to really create a culture where that's okay, that anybody asks anything. Did that happen or is that planned or whatever? Being very responsive to the person's needs and preferences and requests. Then we also have a beautiful practice called learning circles. And I don't know if any of you have ever experienced one, but if you think of sitting in a circle, there's a lot of really good things about that. In fact, why don't you tell me in the chat what's good about sitting in a circle? And shoot, I don't have it handy, but in the Native American culture, they have what they call the talking stick. And I do have one. I think I'm going to bring it. Maybe it's in my travel stuff already to bring it. Oh, I think it to another event I'm going to. So anyway, think of this pen as the talking stick or kind of like a microphone, right? Is kind of like a talking stick, right? Isn't that funny? That could be where the microphone came from. Kind of, maybe. That's interesting to me. But whoever has the talking stick has the floor, as we say. And so you don't have to have a thing, but that's the idea that when it's your turn, it's truly your turn and nobody cross talks over you. And we do not have discussion yet. So you might pose a question. And by the way, there's really kind of two questions. Number one is, just getting to know each other. And there's a lot of value in that. If you have a new team, or even if you don't have a new team, just posing a different kind of question to get to know each other better is very valuable. And then of course, kind of troubleshooting questions. And we also recommend, if you ask what could be going better, you can always say, and what is going well, to kind of even it out if you want to. And so you pose a question, you ask for a volunteer to begin, and then hopefully go around the circle. Someone can pass if they don't want to talk at all, or if they can't think of what they want to say. You double check with them towards the end, and boom, that's it. Then you have crosstalk and discussion. And notice it's not called a listening circle. I find that interesting. It's actually called a learning circle. Why? Because if you take the time to listen to everybody, by the end, you probably learn something and maybe learn how to solve a problem. It's so special and it's so good. And again, people feel like they belong. Yes, and thank you, Lori. In the circle, you can see everyone and everyone is equal. That's exactly right. And I've had older people say they could hear better. Can't we all hear better when we see each other and even see the other person's mouth moving? All right. So we could do a lot more on that, but moving on, community meetings. We've also done a whole webinar on this, and we had Barry Barkin teach us in our first year together. He designed these back in the 1970s with the beautiful people who lived in the nursing home. I actually get to work with him in a grant in Colorado. That's why I was there yesterday. And this week we're helping homes implement these beautiful community meetings. And so I'd love for you to consider this. We recommend daily, Monday through Friday, and you got to trust us. By doing it daily, you build relationship, you build community, you help people feel belonging, you help people hear what's going on in the building, you help people get to know each other better and share their input. I just interviewed an elder in Colorado about these community meetings, and she said, I speak up, everyone speaks up, we all speak up. It was so fascinating to me. She said it 3 times. Do you see the importance of having a forum for speaking up? Not just resident council, no. It's purposeful for both staff and residents to build community. Just some wonderful things can happen, like give the microphone to the new person, whether they're a team member or a resident, and say, hey, tell us about yourself. I love that. Being on top of birthdays, when you do it more often, you don't miss the birthdays. Making sure staff birthdays are included, planning events together, remembering someone who passed away, talking about them, crying, mourning, celebrating people's big life events. Someone just had their 25th grandbaby, solving problems together. Hey, whatever happened on the weekend, let's talk about it, It's so good. And then your community could also just decide what you want to do. We do recommend like finding things to discuss that are of mutual interest. And also like celebrating every little thing you can think of. Maybe someone's walking again, celebrate it, right? Someone's back from the hospital, someone's moving home, I saw that the other day. Oh, so many good things that you could do in a community meeting. Highly recommend them. If I was leading a community, I would highly recommend, I would do community meetings. I believe they're that powerful from all of my study. So now we move on. Look at this. Leadership team members periodically make sure to keep themselves knowledgeable about culture change, resident director life, and they share. So here you are right now on this webinar. I'll be sending out the recording link. If I was you, I would recommend you invite your team to also watch it, not just you. And you make or have a lunch and learn and show it. The more your team learns, the better, and the more you maybe can watch things together and then talk about it after. I find very powerful to maybe make a decision or two after, learning something that could be pretty easy to do, to be honest. And then another good one, leadership. Team members have an ongoing process to identify and remove barriers to changing institutional culture and to create resident-directed life. So whether it's in language or policies or job descriptions or your systems. And by the way, one of the homes that's now in this project, Shani's on the line, and maybe you have more with you, Shani from Legacy and Gillette, they chose this. Isn't that powerful? To really be intentional to create an ongoing process to identify barriers. And then, part of our job is to build in sustainability. And so even after a year of doing a culture change project, ideally this will be embedded into their system. Isn't that cool? And their culture. Thank you, Legacy, for picking that. All right, the next one is that the administrator or equivalent really supports culture change efforts. So they support having a team or a committee. They support projects. They give power to a committee to lead change. And this would even be in the administrator's job description. Woo! Aren't we pushy or something? But a lot of people told us when we developed the 2.0 that you got to have this powerful leadership backing if you're really going to change culture. So here's a similar one. High-level leaders, CEO, owners, board, actively support culture change, philosophy, committee projects, providing commitment and resources. We all know what that means, money, and wanting to hear what the progress is. And then this maybe should have been first, but the home has a standing culture change committee or whatever you want to call it with nice broad representation. If you don't have residents on other committees, do it. Even coffee committees, do it. Not just resident committees, but a resident on maybe another kind of committee. They live there, you don't. The more we involve the people who live there, the better the culture. Truly, I see it every time that people do it. And then a broad representation of the teams and the different levels of everybody. Next, we have basically consistent staffing. I've also heard it called dedicated staffing. So we're talking about not floating, not rotating, consistent staffing. And we divided it out, RNs, LPNs, and CNAs. And hopefully everybody knows by now that outcomes are better when team members remain the same and you take care of the same people every time you work. It is more efficient. You know the person, they know you. How many of you have heard dear older people say, oh my gosh, I have to train another one? That just breaks my heart. They shouldn't have to train any of us, really, And in the CMS regs, this is listed, here and there. And we also found it under preventing accidents and under non-pharmacological approaches, but it's even better than that, and it will prevent accidents. Okay, now we have CNAs work together to decide who works when and how to cover absences or call-offs or calling in. So it's another way of saying self-scheduling. And homes that I've seen actually do it, you get to a place where it works and it works well, and you hand off all that scheduling to the team. So as you all get more and more stable, it's something to consider. It's certainly a change practice, right, from institutional style scheduling. And what we tend to see is that people take more ownership when they all do it together and get to know each other's needs better and preferences better and back up each other better when you don't have to just call into one scheduler all the time. Another one is that culture change and resident-directed life are actually brought up during the recruitment process and interviews, and people are asked about it, if they know anything about it. You can be surprised. You never know where someone comes from. They might know a lot about culture change. New hire orientation emphasizes each staff member's role in supporting culture change. So now we have it in orientation. We expect you to help us change institutional culture and promotes resident-directed life. All job descriptions include team member duties in supporting these ideas of culture change and resident-directed life. Now the job description, orientation and job description there. Then we have a reward system or recognition system exists to support staff members who are really going above and beyond in the arena of culture change or resident-directed living. In fact, you can't tell too well, but some of you may remember Brenda Hancock moved to your state, but I knew her in Colorado, and this is her bulletin board years ago. Culture change is a journey, and they would recognize team members as warranted. So it was not a monthly employee of the month. No, that gets to be institutional, to be honest. If you just have to find someone, because there has to be one. And she did it the opposite. She only gave it when someone really stood out. So that's where we got the idea, actually. And then I have seen this really shift culture. If you get it into your performance evaluations that you expect people to support culture change or resident-directed living, however you want to call it. And I'll tell you what, if you're going to be evaluated on it, that's a great way to change behavior right away. We also identify here that all team members get trained on culture change at least annually. So if you don't have that embedded in your culture, at least do it annually, if not more. I would do it way more. And then the principles of culture change and resident-directed living are integrated into, there you go, all training topics. There, now we're talking to get it somehow into every topic. Before we started today, we brought up like infection control right now after COVID. It's so, high level intense. And someone was sharing that they're kind of hearing, shouldn't we make nursing homes more like hospitals? And we're like, no, but we can have both. We can have good infection control in even your home and my home and their home. We cannot, not even home like, everybody. We don't want home like, we want home. Let's get good at creating true home for people, not hospital. That's what we're fighting against already, right? We don't want more of it. So the next one, it has to do with the medical director, that they would also be involved in culture change efforts and support it. Support, for instance, residents to make their own choices, support making flexible medication passes, etc. If you haven't watched it yet, go watch Westwood Heights, because they did that. They did flexible meds and worked with physicians to also discontinue medications. And they were I don't know how many people they cut down the number of meds. And guess what? They need less med aid hours because of it. Who's cutting their labor costs? Westford Heights is. So a great way to include your medical director in that kind of practice. And then get ready, one of my favorites, and it brings up a lot of discussion. Team members wear clothes that support a home environment as opposed to scrubs or uniforms. So these are 3 nurse friends that all used to be decked out in scrubs and white lab coats. And look at them now. And it took a little while, but as nurse managers, they really set the role modeling and set the stage. And a really easy way to move into this, everyone, is to simply not require scrubs and to simply say you have a choice. So what we run into is a lot of people want to wear their scrubs. We understand. It's too bad. It's another medical thing. But if you have team members that are willing to not wear the medical clothing, that's the step into it, is to make it optional. And then we find that it just creates so much more discussion and conversation. You start to see people's personalities. One home during COVID said they felt like it kept morale up to not have to wear the medical clothing. We've heard people say, I feel sicker when you're wearing medical clothing. So just by starting with a choice, it's a great way to walk into that. Team members other than CNAs are actually encouraged and maybe provided cross-training as CNAs. This is so good, everyone. if I work with any of you in a nursing home, I'm finally ready. I've been ready for a while, but I was an activity director and then surveyor. I'm not a nurse. I'm not a CNA. I'm not a therapist, but I would insist on getting trained as a CNA, because then there might be moments in time that I can truly help someone. It doesn't make too much sense that I run around and interrupt CNAs helping someone in the bathroom when I could just help someone in the bathroom. And that's what many homes are doing. I've heard many administrators in conferences down in Kentucky say things like, I love being a CNA. I love being able to help a resident to get into bed or get out of bed, to eat, and yes, sometimes to use the bathroom. You know, none of us would be helping people in the bathroom all day, but there are moments in time that it would be a better use of everyone's time that I help this person now, rather than, you know, like I said, run around to find someone. Another great one, team members other than activities or recreation regularly engage residents, either individually or a group. The point here is you don't have to lead a group. So we heard this in our movement. It came out of Missouri. The administrator said that he encouraged, you know, all team members to create life. And he did it per neighborhood. He said, I want a spontaneous activity every day on every neighborhood. That's one way you can do it. Back to Brenda Hancock in your state, she went to her team and said, I want all managers to do something, I don't care what it is, with residents once a month. And I found this profound. Brenda herself would always lead a garden club. And she said, no better to learn how to garden from than older people. And then her DON simply started to make root beer floats on Fridays. Notice the mandate was once a month, and it became weekly with the DON and her root beer floats. And that is the point, to make true normal life just becomes easy and normal and fun. And notice these were mandates. I got to tell you, sometimes a mandate, which doesn't sound very culture changey, is the perfect thing to do in order to force a change in culture. So don't forget, a good mandate goes far. Then we have that your home would welcome and encourage staff, team members to dine with residents. One of my favorites. I would do it too. This is a home in Colorado many years ago. The administrator did open dining. Notice the kitchen staff came out of the kitchen. They created a buffet, Wednesday buffet. It was free to anyone working on Wednesdays. Come dine with residents. You see 2 staff members dining at the table. And I'll tell you what, I was a surveyor back then, and I got to witness this, and it was literally music to my ears, because when you put a team member at every table or 2, all of a sudden it's kind of noisy in the dining room, which is often quiet. You know, you kind of run out of things to talk about when you sit with the same people every day for 3 meals a day. So it was so beautiful, so beautiful. Many homes have opened up to just say staff, yes, and sit down and eat their lunch with residents if they want, no problem. We had an administrator in Colorado. She would move a different table every time and sat with residents, and she would always say this is her big quote, I know what goes on in my building. Isn't that great? And she did. And then you see the baby, speaking of babies, my good friend, the administrator, told that activity director to bring your baby to work with you every day until she's toddling around. And they had story after story, particularly of like gentlemen that never talked, that would only talk to the baby. Isn't that beautiful? We need more babies. Our next practice or artifact is a career ladder for CNAs. Very important. If you don't have it, it's a way to honor CNAs, to create a step up for a CNA. They become maybe a supervisor, for sure, like a mentor, a trainer, they can fill in, etc. Supervise, coach. And then also the home would promote and support staff team members to further their education if they want to. So maybe supporting with a scholarship or altering the schedule to get to classes. And then we want recruiting volunteers. Oh, this is so good. To recruit volunteers and direct volunteer activities, the home actually has a paid volunteer coordinator in addition to the activity director. We know that that tends to fall under activities and they don't have time. And this could even be part-time. I've seen that work well. A part-time volunteer coordinator, wouldn't that be amazing? And then I've seen people do the math. The more volunteers you get in, the more hours you get covered, you do the math. You do the total number of volunteer hours times minimum wage, and you show how much money is represented by all these volunteer hours. So good. All team members receive person-directed dementia care training annually. Very important. The home uses non-institutional language, yay. So some of our teams are taking this very serious and they're looking at documents, especially if you need to revamp a document. There's your moment in time to really change language. Please do not let toileting be on any piece of paper, if you can help it. As, for example, so in your clinical charting and job descriptions, policies and procedures, plus verbally. And then the only way any of us will change language is to have some periodic training that helps remind us. So let's see, I mentioned the word neighborhood today. Use that instead of unit or wing. We're trying not to label people. That's not a wheelchair bound person. No, that's Joe who uses a wheelchair. There's a free white paper if you're interested. We called it The Power of Language to Create Culture. And I'll come back to language in a minute at the end here. Also, there's an employee council. So we covered family council and employee council today. And we also have a recorded session on employee councils if you're interested. So we just finished the artifacts, and this is just an example. Homes total the practices that they feel are fully implemented or partially implemented or not implemented. I love to say yet, hopefully they will be someday. You get subtotals, grand totals, and also you can turn into percentages. On the homes I work with, we look at these annually. They sign up to do the project, they sign up and agree to at least choose 3 practices, and many end up doing a lot more than that. And then we can see the difference year to year. These tallies improve. And here toward the end, I love reminding you all in Wyoming, years ago now, your coalition came up with these 2 big audacious goals, I love to call them, that everyone working in a nursing home in your state receive some culture change training. So we could use your help with that. Please keep passing these on. And then also a big goal is, wouldn't this be great, that everyone who lives in a Wyoming nursing home is not woken up. They're honored to sleep until they wake, and they get uninterrupted sleep, they get restorative sleep. Isn't sleep healthy, everyone? And we call ourselves health care. And yet most people living in most nursing homes across the country are deprived of the sleep that they should be getting. When we're well rested, everything's better, right? We know it. Your depression's better, anxiety's better, you're more alert. And one of my favorites actually is you don't fall as much when you're well rested. So on that note, a couple of things coming up. Every month we do this free webinar. Usually it's the last Friday. We have to move it sometimes if it's a holiday. But next month, Friday, July 28th, will be Culture Change 101. We're going to go into the principles of changing institutional culture. And please do watch for the registration. Like I'm just registering, having people register so I have names. That's all. And homes, ideally we'd love to see every one of your 37 Wyoming nursing homes on here. Don't have that today, but I will tell you that people are watching the recordings. Every time I go look, more people have watched them. So thank you for passing the recording link on as well. And I've been doing a poll the last few sessions. And is anyone surprised? The poll found that people would rather live in a home than a facility. Isn't that great? So we're trying to get rid of that F word. We have fun calling it that. It is a home. And the more we stay home, guess what? We remind ourselves, or community, it is a beautiful community. And, or just call it St. John or whatever your name is, Polaris, Spirit Polaris, you know? We also did a poll, and look at this, 100% people on the webinar said I'd rather call not a patient, not even a resident, but a person or an individual. Isn't that great? So we're trying to do that. Some homes right now in your state, the people who live there have decided to refer themselves as neighbors. And in another home, they decided to refer themselves as community members. And I have another friend in Colorado, administrator, who says, you know what, I hate that word resident. He was a person way before he was a resident of a nursing home. And isn't that true? So let's try a poll. Here we go. Oh, cool. There it is. Poll. Here we go. Would you rather be toileted or help to the bathroom or help to the restroom? I love polls. Would you rather be toileted or would you rather be helped to use the bathroom or restroom? Then take notes. I'm gonna put it on the next webinar. Oh, imagine that. Guess what it is, everyone? Who can guess? What's the percent? Once more, it's 100%. I'd rather be helped in the bathroom or restroom rather than toileting. I think that's profound, don't you, to see it in a poll? So there you go. I don't know how much more encouragement we need, but pretty profound. You can also make fun of this, guys. How many of us say, I'll be right back, I gotta go toilet myself? Can she toilet herself? There's so much talk about toileting schedule, the 2-hour toileting. Oh, we make it a verb, I have to go toilet. No. Help me, fight against it, avoid it. Don't ever bring up the toilet, unless you're talking about like the toilet is broken. We really don't need to, or talking about if someone can sit on the toilet. But otherwise, toileting shouldn't even be a word, should it? And just talking normal. I gotta go help Sam use the bathroom. We see some women bring up freshen up or powder room. How about not saying anything at all? We'll just be right back, you know? So with that, do any of you have any questions or comments or big ideas? Feel free to unmute or say something in chat. If you haven't seen these videos that I've mentioned, Star Valley, Life Care, Casper, Westwood Heights, Mission at Castle Rock, and Morningstar are all featured in 1 hour 1 hour videos. And I really do need more and more people to watch them and pass them on, please, because they're current. You know, we're losing ground. Most people don't know about culture change, and you have 5 homes that are doing it right now. And Westward Heights has the most dramatic outcomes. And I believe it's like our moment in time to get people's attention. Would you all please pass them on and watch them? And I might, if I may, do it with your family. Watch it with your family. Pop popcorn. Think of it as a movie. You might know some people. You're all from Wyoming. And we need people of all ages to see how living in a nursing home can be different. Thank you. Jamie says all 5 links will be shared with Wyoming Health Department notes going out today. Woo, Jamie. Thank you, Jamie. They really use all of your help, and everyone go watch them. How many of you have watched any of them? And have any of you watched any of them? So some takeaways from today. Please be aware there's artifacts of the institution. Call them out and maybe learn the artifacts of culture change instead. You know, make copies of the artifacts tool, give it to everyone, become an advocate, become a lead, learn all you can. Maybe consider doing a culture change committee, because changing institutional culture has all the answers we all want. You will save money, you will make money. You'll have better outcomes, better satisfaction from everyone. You'll have better compliance. You'll go above compliance. Everything is better. And I encourage you to join us to talk more about life and care. And right now, would would you guys please help me for the grant? I need knowledge before and knowledge after, 1 through 5. I should have put that on there, 1 to 5. Can I please hear from some of you for the grant? And do any of you have any questions or thoughts or ideas? Eric Foley, you're on the line. Glad you could make it. Anything you want to say? Or Patty Hall, your state ombudsman?
Well, I thought it was another great session and a lot of really good ideas, and appreciate it again.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Eric. And by the way, everybody, who's coming in August? Oh my gosh, tomorrow, I can say next month, August 11th. As of this moment, we have 44 people coming. We could have 150. And the last I looked, that represented 15 nursing homes. Wouldn't it be grand if we got all 37? That's my goal. I'm going to reach out to the homes that are not signed up. But if any of you can help me, if you know friends are not coming, bring them. Or, you know, friends who work at a different nursing home that don't know anything about it. So it's in Lander. It's at the Inn at Lander. It's free. Even lunch is free. Thank you, Eric Foley. Oh, thank you so much. Leading Age is doing lunch. Along with a speaker, Linda Shell, we're going to cover changing institutional language, and we're going to play a game all day. We're going to talk about leadership, each one of us, not just certain people. Leadership by all, particularly through crises. Restorative sleep, and caring for and engaging families more and more as partners. And right there is the QR code. If you haven't signed up yet, I think you could get the link right there. And did some of you answer knowledge before and after? Can some more do it, please? 1 or 2 more, please. I need an average. Thank you, Patty Hall. Knowledge before, knowledge after. Anybody? Thanks for helping me out. I really appreciate it. And does anybody have anything else they'd like to share? Otherwise?
Oh, Carmen?
Yes, Don Marie.
Hey, this is Don Marie. Hey, I just have a quick question for you. So in your opinion, if you have a home that maybe feeling like this is such an immense task, trying to implement some of these culture change pieces, do you have kind of a recommendation of something small that they could start with to then build on?
Let's see. Well, you know, Don Marie, thank you for asking. I don't know that I've ever been asked that, so I'm thinking right now. You know, you did hear me say maybe start with a culture change committee, right? And then pass out this tool, get people reading it, you know, see what gets people excited. I don't want to be woken up. Now that's big. Wait, you asked for small, but just starting with the committee could be a step. And then, you know, I'm trying to think, like turning off the overhead paging. To me, like that's a simple one, you know, but double checking everyone knows how to get a hold of each other, you know. I don't know. Gosh, I'd be curious if other people have thoughts. Do you, Don Marie, have thoughts on what seems more doable than others?
I mean, I think it might be one of the cases of being kind of individual per home, and you know that might look a little different for everyone.
You mean like serving the individuals who live there, going after that? Is that what you mean?
Well, just I guess maybe just some way to start that thought process of making change and keeping it simple, keeping it something that's very achievable, especially when there might be some hesitation or reluctance. But just to get those thoughts kind of open and maybe allowing some good things and thoughts to happen that they could build on.
You know what I'm realizing, Don Marie? believe it's gonna depend on the culture already there, you know? Maybe they already do something that I might suggest, you know?
Mhm.
And I probably think some things are easier than others because I've been doing this a long time, like just to go plop down and have your lunch. The administrator could go eat lunch with a group of people, right? And role model and say, hey, anyone's welcome to do this, see? But some other people might go, what? You can't do that. They might very well be infection preventionists, I suppose. No offense, guys. You know, depends on your purview and your responsibilities, right? So,
Carmen,
yeah,
this is
Shannon.
Annie. Can I make a suggestion for Dawn Marie?
Hmm.
So kind of what, so we picked ours out before we really got together with our group. And I'm kind of regretting that decision because we started watching these webinars and then coming together afterwards. And it's interesting what the group gets excited about versus the administrators, right? So that would be my suggestion. Start, letting them watch these videos, these webinars, and see what gets them excited. And you might find that a lot of things that you're already doing a lot of these things already. So you can piggyback off of some things that you're already doing. And you might get inspired to do some things that aren't even on the list.
Let's see.
Thank you for sharing that, Shani.
And Shanny, you can change them, my dear, if you're hearing from people who live there. They're the point, right? And then Larissa too is saying that these don't have to be big changes to serve the people who have served us, built this country. 4th of July coming up, right? It's funny. I feel like I don't know what to say. I feel dumbfounded, but some are harder than others, easier than others. And again, it's going to depend on your team, your culture, what you already got going. Some people think some things are easy, some don't, you know? So I'm sorry, it is kind of personal. Yeah, to each group. So thank you though, Dawn Marie. Thank you everyone for coming today. Woo, happy 4th of July. Thanks everyone. God bless.
Thanks, Carmen.
Thanks everyone. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.